This is Nicole with HelpMamaRemote.com, and today I have my husband with me. Last week I asked you all to submit any questions that you had concerning gardening, so you did. So we're about to answer those questions. Do you do companion planting?
Yes, we companion. Tomatoes go best with basil, but sometimes you have to make sure you don't overcrowd. If you're doing square foot garden, if you're doing regular garden, make sure you plant them a decent distance away, so the tomato plants won't overshadow your basil. And that's about it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we started companion gardening last year. Every year we try to do something new and just learn more, to
Absolutely.
enhance our knowledge. So last year our thing that we did was companion gardening. And companion gardening is when you plant certain plants together and they benefit one another. It's called a symbiotic relationship. Now I learned that from my 7-year-old daughter.
Absolutely.
She was telling me about the symbiotic relationship of a tick and a rhino. So one benefits the other, so if you plant these plants together, it helps benefit where this plant won't get this disease and like that. So last year was the first year companion gardening, and if you just Google companion gardening, there are a lot of charts online. And that's what we do. If we're in a garden and we're planting something, I'll go straight to my phone, Google what does well with this plant and what does well with that plant. Absolutely. And that's what we'll if we have that, we'll put it with it. Like my husband said, what was it we planted last year together, and it was overshadowing.
Right, it was, and that's what I was just saying. Tomatoes was overshadowing the basil, and the basil wasn't getting enough sun to flourish the way it's supposed to. But they make good companions, but you have to plant them a decent distance apart.
Yeah, so like you have the basil and tomato together, but once the tomato get real big, the basil is hidden.
Right.
So it doesn't get the sun. So yeah, that's what we learned from companion gardening, that you have to still watch how you plant things together. Okay. Do you guys fertilize with what and what points for what veggies?
Absolutely. For all veggies, but you should do it at the beginning of the season when you prepare your soil. I use plant tone. That's a natural feeding. It's called plant tone. I mix it in at the top layer of my soil before I plant. I water my bed good and everything. Make sure that it's distributed. That's like a week before I plant. And then after that, your garden should be cool as far as when you put your plants in. The food or whatever, the nourishment and everything should be cool in there. And also, you said and how often.
No, she didn't say what else. She said, do you guys fertilize with what and at what points? Does that mean how often? Does she mean at what point? Okay,
basically,
okay.
So you'll do it that first time, and then probably a month after. Like every month, try to feed your plants.
Okay, and that's another question somebody else asked. So when we get to it, we'll say we did that one. Okay, do you pH balance, test the soil, or simply wing it?
No, well, I have a good formula already. I don't know if you guys been following my wife when she talk about my plant mix, and I basically use vermiculite, peat moss, and compost, and on top of that, the plant tone. Sometimes I use another fertilizer, 10-10-10. But with that balance, it do pretty good every year. I don't use a whole bunch of different things. I just use that, and it tend to to work. That's an average mix that should be good. It's only when you do the pH balance with, I think, when you using your own soil. I don't use my own soil. I mix a soil, and it have all the benefits in it.
Do you use those special products for tomatoes?
No, I use the same mix. I told you, I use the plant tone, and sometimes I put 10-10-10 in. So those the basics that I use to grow my tomatoes. Maybe some coffee grinds or something like later on in the season. I sprinkle around the roots of it, and that's about it.
Okay.
Water real good.
And I think this one is concerning companion garden. It says you mentioned adding flowers to areas with certain vegetables. If growing in containers, can you plant the flowers nearby, or do you need to be in the same container? Now, I answered her question. I think I forgot we was doing this video, but I answered her question because I didn't know if she was like in a process of doing something. So her question is like with companion gardening. I think it was when I was showing our tomatoes, I said how we put marigolds at the bottom of the tomatoes for companion gardening. What? I forgot what it does. It keeps
different bugs, different aphids and things like that out of the thing. You know, stop it from giving it diseases.
Yeah, and I forgot what it smelled like. It smelled like something. I forgot. It's supposed to smell like something, and they say it lasts a long time, even after you have.
Dig up,
you dig up. You know, you take up everything. The marigold, whatever.
Marigolds are good for any plants, regular plants or vegetables or whatever. It's good for any plants that keep certain insects away from your plant, damaging the roots of it. Okay,
so that was her question. If you're if you're doing gardening in pots, can you have like say tomatoes in one pot and marigolds in another pot? And we're just coming based on what we think would be
the answer to that is no, because it's not in the same soil. It have to be in the same soil to have those benefits, because that's what drive those insects away. So it have to be in the same soil. It might keep away different animals from the smell, but as far as in the soil, that's a different story. So it have to be in the same soil.
Yeah, and because I had thought of that. It was something I was gonna plant. I think the same day she asked this question, I was like, oh, maybe I could. Then I'm like, no, that's not gonna work because it needs to be in the soil to give away.
I tell you what, if you plant those things in the same pot,
right,
it'll do good.
Yeah, now like you could put your marigolds at the base, and you probably just need 1 or 2 marigolds because they get kind of nice size at the base of your tomatoes in the same pot. That should do perfect.
That should do perfect.
And I think that's what I had replied back. Okay, next, how do you guys get into gardening? Let me answer that.
You can answer that.
Okay, what happened was
what you think.
No, listen. When we first came here, we were not into the yard at all. We were like, cut the grass and be done, right? And I think I had this, and we did a tag video, but I had some coworkers, they would plant tomatoes, eggplant, and I would hear them talking about their garden. So then I would we started off probably with just this one little spot. When I say one little spot in the ground, no raised bed or anything. We planted tomatoes and cucumbers. That was it, right? I think that was it.
Actually, I think it just was tomatoes.
Yeah, probably started off, Yeah, we probably started off with tomatoes because I wanted at least have some fragrant tomatoes. So I did that a couple years. After I got pregnant with my last child, it was too hot. We had a little garden out there. I was able to manage it to a certain degree. The following year, I think he was trying to outdo me.
Basically.
That's what that was. Because I had, like I said, and when I say a little spot, I had a little spot. It was like half of, about 2x4 little space by a little fence.
Yeah, it was like a 2x4. Yeah, 2 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah, like I said, it was in the ground. So he wanted to outdo me. I don't know.
I don't think that's what it was.
Yeah,
what got me going was the grandmother. She told me what I can't do. So,
my grandmama.
Right, her grandmama. And, when we was doing these, she came out there, she looked at it, oh, that's cool, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then she told me, she was like, well, I know y'all ain't going to keep up with it. And so, that kind of sparked something up in me, I'm like, oh, okay. So I did my little research and everything, and I saw that raised beds. And I was like, you know what, that might look pretty nice, and, I had an idea how I was going to do it. So when I first started out, I think I did it wrong, because I had 6 by something, and it was hard to reach over in it. And as I kept coming up with these ideas, I started liking it. Once I started seeing the fruit really being produced, and I'm like, wow, maybe I should try this, and maybe I should try that. And from that point, that's when I started liking it, and grandmother come over, and it was basically like one of them things. She come over and she like, oh, so you made it a little bigger, and then from that point, the next year, she like, whoa, so you keeping it up? I'm like, yeah, you said I couldn't do it, so And then after that, it wasn't about her no more. It was about my family.
Yeah. And so I grew up in my family. My grandmother had a garden. My aunt, we lived in a family building. My grandmother, I would call them gangster gardeners, because it was a vacant lot next door to the building we lived in. My aunt took over the whole vacant lot and had a garden in that vacant lot. It was another, not the next door, but the lot next over there, 2 lots over. There was an abandoned building, and my grandmother planted a garden in the back, in the backyard of an abandoned building.
That's awesome.
So like I say, my grandma and them like gangs. They'll take over the vacant lots in the neighborhood.
But it beautified.
Yeah, and because my grandma, she would clean the whole block, go out and clean the whole block. But now she doesn't garden that much. She grow her greens, and their church have a garden, and she'll do a little work down there. So I got the inspiration too of being in an environment where my family they went out and got greens and things from the garden. Okay, so that was how do we start gardening? Okay, do you have to dig in the ground underneath the raised beds?
Absolutely not. Get you some fabric, some garden staples, and you'll cover up the grass. You don't even have to pull the grass up. You cover up the grass if you're doing raised beds. If you just want to not do your own mix of dirt and save some money, okay, yes, you have to dig up the ground, whatever size you want. But I think the easy way is to get the fabric and staple it down with the staples, and make a raised bed.
Fabric staples.
And make a raised bed. Get some sticks and drill them together. Have a size you want it, but don't go too big. Make sure it's a 4 by 4, something like that. Don't go 6, too wide, because it's hard to reach in it. That was my mistake. So 4 by 4, 2 by 2, or something like that, if you want to reach over in it, and it'll be much easier than have it a raised bed on top of the ground and not under the ground. I think that's the best way. Then you have to deal with all that pH level and get you a good mix of compost, vermiculite, and peat moss.
Can't you use cardboard first laid down?
You can definitely use cardboard is another thing you can use other than the fabric.
Yeah, to cover up if you have grass or
newspaper.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay. How do you keep the squirrels and rabbits from devouring the fruits of your labor?
Now you have to buy you some small inexpensive fencing or fabric just to put around the base of it, about 2 feet. In some places, I guess in Chicago, I don't know anywhere else if it's worse or whatever, but some places, they bother your garden more than others. We really recently just had a small problem with that, so we have to just put a little small border around it. Nothing expensive. You can buy something like that for $5 or $6.
They got deer some too. Yeah. It's like some mesh, right? Something like that.
You can just get that and put it around there, and you won't have that problem.
And I think too, since we feed birds, we have Okay, too many bird feeders.
Bazillion bird feeders.
Too many bird feeders. But since we feed the birds, the squirrels glean off the stuff that they drop. So the squirrels don't too much. They don't mess with our vegetables until like the end of last year. They start picking with our tomatoes.
Picking with the tomatoes.
And
once they ripen.
Yeah, the rabbits now they'll eat some Swiss chard. Maybe some lettuce. And they also eat our weeds. They will eat.
Yeah, we like that part.
Yeah, they'll eat our weeds. So we haven't had too much of a problem. We've also even tried to like plant Swiss chard in the back where we think
can have it,
so they can have something to eat. But I do have a client that they had a really hard time with squirrels. So it just really depends on, I guess, how hood your squirrels are.
Right, depends on the area. Some parts. You probably got to put up metal, like metal gating or something, but we haven't had that problem, so we don't know the exact solution to that. Just what we're telling you as far as the little mesh.
Just know, watch out if they start bothering, then block your stuff off so they won't get to it.
But they're gonna try to find a way.
See, that's what I'm saying. Them squirrels, they serious. If you see them trying to get on a bird feeder, I'm like, it is so hilarious.
Yeah, it's serious.
How they try to eat. Okay, someone asked about us showing, it says, please share a DIY video on how to build those plant boxes. We'll try to do that because we're building a box for, what is it?
Onions.
We'll try.
We'll try to do that. It's fairly simple. I'll say just make sure you use, like with onions, you don't want to have big boxes like you would when you're planting your regular vegetables. You can have something like a 2 feet by 8 feet or something like that. It depends on your space. But something to that effect, and I will do a video of how to make the box. It's rather simple.
We just got to remember.
Yeah, it's rather simple though. A couple of screws and some boards. You can get your boards cut at Home Depot. Without
pre-cut.
You doing pre-cut at Home Depot. Once you get what you want, have them to cut it down to the size you want. Just all about just screwing it in. That's it.
Okay. I live in the Florida Panhandle, and last year we used the square foot gardening method. No matter what we do, our plants seem to do okay, tomatoes, bell peppers, cucumbers specifically, but they don't produce well. What are your tips for that? The plants never seem to get that big. They never seem to get that big.
Depending on how big you want them. I'm not understanding. Do you want them store big or do you want them like natural big? Because natural big is how you plant. Because sometimes the store they use different chemicals and things like that to make the vegetables super huge, and you think that this is just and when you're growing natural or something like that, sometimes the vegetables are a little smaller, but they're natural. I don't know how small, or they're just like they're not growing the way you want them to grow. But if you're into the big vegetable things, you probably have to use some of those different chemicals. Certain fertilizers make plants grow big like that, but that's my reason for growing vegetables is to get away from the store type vegetables, so we can eat natural, the fertilizers and things of that nature. So it all depends on your taste of what you want. It's 9 out of 10 times it's in the fertilizer.
Right now, because if she says she's square foot gardening, she should have like a nice base as far as the soil, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of odd, that you're not like. And then, like he say, it depends on what you consider big. Because now say for instance we have a variety. You have some tomatoes. It could be the tomato, tomato she buy. Yeah, it could be the variety.
We would like to know what kind of tomatoes that you're growing. Or whatever else plants that look like they're going small, and let us know what variety it is.
Right, like the big boys, they're big, right?
Yeah, big boys, they're a nice size.
Right, so maybe it's your variety.
I'm sorry. Another thing is when you're square foot gardening, And you're growing in square foot garden, they're going to be small also because you're growing so many other different plants in there.
That's true.
So you still can use the square foot method, but probably every other box.
That's true.
Instead of every box.
Yeah.
Every other box, so your roots can grow a little bigger.
That
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that might be it. Because like what do we do? I think that was last year when we did tomatoes. We had how many tomatoes in one box? God. And it was just like overwhelming. It was just so much. So this year we do like the square method in the sense where we know we visually picture right here, right there. But we know in a tomato in a bed with tomatoes, we cannot plant 12 tomatoes. You just put 4, or what do we put 4 in?
4, just 4.
4, and that's it. Nothing else in there, is it?
No, unless you want to do the companion plant like the marigolds.
Marigolds at the bottom, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Which I might do later. About
we need.
Put a few marigolds in there. But other than that, no other vegetable because
it's
tomatoes. It's overwhelming and they get extremely big. And make sure you have good support.
Yeah.
For those tomatoes, and especially if you have just 4 in a box, in a 4x4 box, because they get big.
So maybe that's it too. Your space is not enough space
overcrowded.
For so they can't grow.
Correct.
Okay. The last 2 years, at some point, it seems the tomato plants start getting sick from the bottom of the plant up. The plants get a light brown color. We rotate crops and have added Epsom salt to help with magnesium.
Okay.
Any ideas as to what could be causing that or how to fix it? We've got a tester that says we watered them okay and the pH was okay.
It sounds like it's okay. But it sounds like it's also being overwatered or it sounds like it's being overwatered. But you're saying that it was watered okay. The pH level, you put Epsom salt. Did you put the Epsom salt too close to the roots? It could have burnt it and produced brown leaves and things like that. When you're applying Epsom salt, make sure you don't apply it too close to the roots. Or maybe some plants are good with Epsom salt, but maybe you need to change the Epsom salt to a type of plant tone or some other plant tones, but make sure you don't be too close to the roots or it can burn your plant or do something to that effect.
That could be, so something in there. And then I wonder if or could it have been too, if they're too crowded? Could that have been it?
Right. If it could. Your box could be too crowded. Was it the square foot method that you had, and it had too many different plants in there? Because sometimes they don't always work. I found that out through trial and error. Because some plants just too big to be in a box with one another. Lettuces and things like that, they are perfect. You can have spinach, lettuce. You can have all different types of lettuce. It can be crowded as it can be. But tomatoes, I would recommend not use the square foot method with tomatoes because tomatoes grow quite huge, or squash or something like that. No.
Okay. Okay. One asked, I don't know where to start. I did want to do like a little, just like a little basic how to start for someone that's a straight newbie. And tell me what your thoughts are too. I would say for a straight newbie to start with a couple pots. Like, what do you like? What does your family like? Do you all want tomatoes? Do you all want cucumbers? Do you all want spinach? Just start with like 2 things. So if you say, I want to start a garden, I would not start a garden with, necessarily getting a raised bed and starting 6 different plants. I would just start the first year off with 2 things that my family likes. If my family like lettuce, or if we like tomatoes, or if we like cucumbers, just take 2 things and possibly start off with a pot. If you don't have any raised beds or anything, start off with a pot, something that's small that you can maintain and it doesn't feel overwhelming. I think especially when you start off with too much, you get overwhelmed and you think you just failed, but you didn't. So start off with a pot. a nice soil mix, the key, nice soil mix, and just make sure you take care of it. And if you start with 2, I mean, you really feel empowered, like you really can, you can handle it. And next year you say, okay, we did well with this, or what did I, and always evaluate what happened, what went wrong that year, what do we need to do different, because that's how you grow and that's how you learn. And then that's how you'll be able to say, okay, I want to add this, or I want to add that next year. I think it's very empowering. What you think?
I think you hit it on the head, and especially for a newbie, because you're empowered when you can control what you have. If you're the type of person that like herbs and stuff like that, pots are great. If you just want to start out with tomatoes, tomatoes is a good thing to grow because they grow. It's a good thing to grow that you really can't mess up on, but you can, you keep up with it through the watering and stuff like that. Pots are awesome. That's a good idea until you do more research and find out about different things about what you want to grow, what your family like, and then try them the following year once you get a hang of it, seeing how things go with it. And also depend on space.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's just when you could control it. Because say, for instance, if your family liked tomatoes, you could put tomatoes on salad. You can put tomatoes on tacos. You can put You can make spaghetti sauce. You can make fried green tomatoes. You can do so much. You can put tomatoes on pizza. You can do so much with tomatoes. After you get done with some tomatoes, you're surely gonna want some more, right?
Oh, absolutely, okay. Absolutely. Your little herb pot, you grow you some oregano, some basil, and now you got your spaghetti sauce. I mean, it's
plant an onion, make some sauce for you in the dough.
In the pot.
Okay. How many plants do you need to plant to have continuous harvest through the season?
Interesting. That all depends. It depends on what kind of plants you're growing. Tomatoes, you don't need that many. Like if you're growing something like lettuce or something like that, you want continuous lettuce. It depends on the space you have. I would use pots. If you're trying to use it in the ground or whatever, lettuce, you should know to grow it early. And right around the summertime, you really can't grow it anymore. And if you are trying to grow it, you have to have them in pots and bring them in the house because they can bolt. They can do that, and then you have to redo them again in the fall.
Yeah.
So, how many plants? It all depends on how many people in your family. Probably one plant per person. Depending on if that's what they like. Again, with tomatoes, you don't need one plant per person because they produce so many, especially if they're in the ground.
Tomatoes, you could probably do one plant per 2,
something like that because they produce so much. As long as you're taking them off, they're going to keep producing.
Yeah,
but if you're just trying to just let it sit there and hope that a whole bunch of tomatoes come on, no, it all depends on how many you take off. The other one's going to grow right behind it.
Okay, so we say if you're also trying to, because I think we did that the year before last, our thing was trying to plant enough for our family and to have a little extra left over. Now, with the thing of having stuff, because it's as you're harvesting, you're eating. It's like when you're harvesting, it's like to eat. You go out, you get lettuce to make a salad for that day. You go, it's like for now. But there are those plants that you harvest to eat as well as you harvest the rest to store for later. That was our thing. So it's also how much room do you have to store? We ran into the problem where we don't have enough freezer space. We don't have enough shelf space. So if we would want to have a bountiful, plentiful, we don't have, However, if you want to grow enough as well as for your family and to be able to share with other families as you eat, that's also awesome. That's a blessing because you're feeding your family salad and then you have some more to share with your neighbors or friends.
Right.
I mean,
we found ourselves giving away more than we can store.
So, right, because you can't.
Which was a good a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
You know, they were like more cucumbers. We had so many cucumbers, it was ridiculous.
If we had zucchini like we had cucumbers, it would have been awesome because we could store the zucchini. We could make zucchini bread.
Right.
I was freezing cucumbers to make because you could put cucumbers in a glass of water. Mm-hmm. So we were freezing cucumbers just to put in water because it's real refreshing to have cucumbers in water. So I was just freezing them and then we would use them like ice cubes. Mm-hmm. How many cucumber plants we planted last year?
To be truthful with you, it was just 4 plants.
We
had I can't tell you how many cucumbers we had. It was just too many.
It was overwhelming.
The next week, we had cucumbers about 14.
Oh,
14
it was so. And then they was like this huge because sometimes you miss the cucumber, they hiding under stuff, and they will be so big. And we planted 8 cucumbers. We are so in trouble.
Yeah. To be truthful with you, we accidentally did that this year. We
planted
got 8
8
cucumbers, so I'm thinking what's gonna go on with that.
So we'll see. So yeah, I would say 1 plant per person because if you have 4, if it's 4 in your family, you have 4 lettuce plants. Because as you harvest lettuce leaves, you harvest and it grow. You harvest and it grow. So you don't just go and pull up lettuce, unless iceberg or head of lettuce, which we don't plant heads of lettuce.
You actually can take stuff off of the iceberg too. It's gonna keep trying to flow on the ball.
Okay. So yeah, but we don't plant iceberg, but like our lettuce, nutrients. Yeah, the mixed lettuce. That we plant. So we just take leaves off, enough for a salad, and it just keeps growing. You don't pull it out until the end of the season when it's, start bolting, or you allow the seeds to grow so you can harvest the seeds, to use the seeds for later.
Yeah, for next year.
Okay, I planted spinach. It came up, but some of the seedlings look like they have flowers at the top and don't seem to be growing. Is that bolting?
That's definitely bolting. Anytime you see that, you have to manage your plant. You have to pop those flowers off, or it's going to just continue to bolt, and you're not going to get a harvest off of them. If you see them bolting, pop the flower heads off, so your plant can keep growing the leaves. Any plant you have, do the same thing. If you know that it's too early for them to be flowering already, pop those heads off so your plant can continue to grow, and that's another way that your plant can get bigger. And I don't know, there was a question earlier
about the tomatoes.
She was saying that her plants wasn't getting big, and I did not think to ask that. There might be another reason why your plants weren't getting too big, because if they were maturing already and they start flowering before time, yeah, that definitely can do it. You have to pop those heads off of any plant that start flowering. It's too early. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what other plant we say, because that basil was bolting last year, we just popped it off. But it did good last year.
It got extremely big. You gotta manage your plants.
Yeah.
You have to make sure, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
With the one that's starting out, the amateur starting out, you wouldn't have knew that probably. And you don't just let the plant just grow. You have to manage your plant. You have to pop those heads off of the heads, meaning the flowers that's on them. If they're growing too early, pop them off, because the plant is too small for that, and it'll stop growing.
One plant for us that's hard to grow is which one?
What, zucchini?
No.
Corn?
No, we didn't even did corn, have we?
I tried corn first year, didn't do well. But
that would be nice for them squirrels.
Yeah, it would.
Cilantro.
Oh my God, cilantro is it's
hard for us.
It's very hard to grow, but it's crazy. Everybody keep telling me the videos I see, they saying that's an easy plant to grow. No, it isn't.
Not for us. It start bolting.
It bolt, but it's still cool. I still don't get it, because it's a cool crop. And it's like,
do we be popping the flowers off on time?
I don't even see flowers on it. So I don't know. It turned purple. It don't do good. Maybe I just need to do more research with it. But we love cilantro. Cilantro put a good kick in your food. Maybe we need to grow it inside or something. That might be it. But cilantro is a hard herb to grow.
Okay. How soon and how often do you fertilize? I think we answered this a little, but just, refresh.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of...
I do it every month. Month and a half, something like that, to keep the nutrients going with the plant so it can grow correct, and just sprinkle it around the roots, not on the roots, around the base of the plant. Let me say that, around the base of the plant, and you water it immediately. And if you could, you can mix it in the top part of the soil and then water it, and that's how you keep your plants maintained and fed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last one. Why is my lettuce not growing? Last question.
It could be too hot. It depends on if it's growing at all. It could be bad seeds. But that's a cool weather crop. So I don't know when you're planting it. If it's now or whatever.
She's in Atlanta too.
She's in Atlanta. In Atlanta, that's a hot spot. So it could be too hot.
I wonder, is it in the sun? If she planted more, if it's like if she puts it in the shade, would that possibly help a little more?
Maybe we need to clarify that answer a little more.
What have you done? Yeah, give us a little more feedback.
Give us a little more feedback
on the lettuce.
What it sounds like it's you're doing it in the hot. When it's too hot, because it's not going to grow. And that's about it. Or the soil. I don't know what kind of soil you have. Give us a little more about what it is you have, so I can answer the question better.
Mm-hmm. So those are our Q&A question and answers from us, and we've been gardening about 10 years now.
9 to 10 years now.
Yeah, 9 to 10 years now, and we really enjoy it. I love the break in the wintertime, but like right now, getting back into it is really refreshing and fun.
Absolutely.
I'm going to just put in some clips of because last week I did a video of the yard, so I'm putting in some clips of where we are now with the yard to see what we did, because he planted the sweet potatoes in that
I can't wait.
And how many sweet potatoes you plant?
Well, at first it was 27. I got 9 more. So what is
it was 27. You got 9 more.
Got 9 more. So what that is? 27.
Gonna make us.
We're adding it up.
28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 36. 36 sweet potato
plants.
Lord.
But I have a 4x16, 10 to 12 inches deep bed that I'm excited about. I mixed up that nice compost I told y'all, the compost, the vermiculite, and the peat moss, and sprinkled some plant tone in it.
Didn't you put some other stuff, perlite?
I put some perlite in it. It got both. It got perlite, but both of those kind of serve the same purpose. They don't break down, but it's supposed to loosen the soil, get aeration. Vermiculite hold moisture more than perlite do. The reason I put perlite in was because the back area where I planted that at, I raised the bed off of the ground. Not first the raised bed was just on the ground. But now I raised it off the ground, put some cinder blocks up under it, and like I said, made a 16 feet by 4 feet bed. And the perlite, I put the perlite in simply to not hold moisture. I wanted to have better drainage. So I'm excited about seeing how many sweet potatoes I'm getting. We're gonna do a lot with sweet potatoes, a lot.
And we did sweet potatoes last year. They were really good.
Oh,
so.
wow.
I don't know how we're going to handle these. Well, we're going to have to freeze them pretty much. Just make them up and freeze them for like sweet potato pie.
There's going to be a lot of sweet potato things going on this year.
Yes. So that's all, folks. We might be doing this. You want to do a video with me every week?
Anytime you want me to, baby.
So maybe we'll do a video every week during gardening season together, me and him. Mm-hmm. We'll do during gardening season. Mm-hmm. After that, then I get my channel back. Okay, y'all. Thank you guys for watching. This is Nicole with HelpMomRemote.com. Bye-bye.
Well, I might be taking over, so, you see my face more,
All right. Bye-bye, y'all.